The driver sat in his hands for 30 seconds before he noticed what was missing from it, the fitting sticker that should have told him everything. He was 71. He had just paid $1,100, and nothing about that club had been built for him. He did not buy the wrong head, he bought the wrong idea. And that is the quieter, more expensive mistake that most senior golfers never even see coming. Here is what the evidence shows. When a golfer past 60 walks into a pro shop, the sales conversation almost never begins with swing speed, launch angle, or the flex of a shaft. It begins with the shiny new head sitting on the rack, the one the brand spent the most money advertising. The head is a decoy. The real performance lives elsewhere, in a handful of components that cost less than half the price of that driver, and that almost nobody checks before paying. Most senior golfers are playing the wrong driver, not because the head is wrong, but because the 80% of the club that determines how the ball flies is being ignored. The system wants you to believe the head matters most. That belief is worth billions. If you have ever stood at the counter with a new driver and felt a quiet pinch when the total appeared on the terminal, that hope fading after the first swing on the range, you already know this system from the inside. The club did not make you faster, it just made you lighter in the wallet. The first thing to understand is where the money actually goes. A premium driver carries a retail price of $600 to $700. The head itself, the part you are told to care about, represents a fraction of that. The shaft, the grip, the fitting, and the assembly carry their own costs, but the biggest line on the invoice is the brand's marketing budget. You are not just buying aluminum and carbon, you are buying the advertisement that convinced you to walk in. Now consider the fitting. A proper driver fitting measures your swing speed, your tempo, your launch angle, and the spin rate that matches your natural motion. It takes about 45 minutes. It costs, at most, a modest fee that is usually waived if you purchase the club. The result is a driver built to your exact numbers. Yet studies of golfer behavior consistently show that only a small fraction of recreational players ever get fit. Most simply, buy the head that looks best on the shelf. Most players never experience what a properly fitted shaft can do for their dispersion because the store shelf is designed to make the eye the decision maker. If you want to continue uncovering the financial traps hidden in plain sight at the course, subscribe now and become the golfer. Others ask for advice. In the comments, type Dead Money. Everything we expose on this channel is in the Dead Money Golf ebook. 120 pages, $47. Link below. If you have ever bought a driver because of how it looked on the wall, that gap is the engine of the whole system. The clubs want you to choose with your eyes because eyes are easy to influence. Numbers are not. The second layer is replacement cycle engineering. The major brands release a new flagship driver every year or two. The changes between models are often minimal, a slightly different face thickness, a new paint scheme, a name that sounds faster. But each release resets the clock on your satisfaction, making last year's perfectly good club feel outdated. This is not an accident. It is a manufacturing calendar designed to convert your comfort into churn. For a senior golfer, this cycle is especially punishing. Your swing speed peaks younger and then gently declines. The driver that suited you at 55 may not suit you at 68, not because it is worn out, but because your body changed. A new head does not solve that. Only a different shaft flex or a lighter weight can. The third layer is psychological pricing. Notice how the driver heads are arranged in the pro shop. The flagship sits at eye level, glowing under the light. The previous model sits a shelf below, often discounted by $100. The fitting station is tucked against the back wall. The layout is a map of what the store wants you to see first. Marketers know that seniors respond to perceived value and to the fear of being left behind by technology. Both are emotional levers, not performance tools. Here is what the evidence shows, and it is the part most people miss. When you take a senior golfer's current driver and compare it to a properly fit alternative with the correct shaft, the measurable difference is not in the head. It is in the shaft stiffness, the kick point, and the total weight. Those components are what turn a decent swing into a consistent one, and they cost a fraction of the retail price. The trap is that nobody at the store tells you this. The commission structure rewards selling the head, not the fitting. The brand's marketing rewards the purchase, not the performance. So you leave with a beautiful object that looks right and flies wrong, and you blame yourself for the mediocre shots that follow. That is the forgotten principle at the heart of this whole system. The club you should buy is not the one that looks the best. It is the one built from the numbers that describe your swing. The head is the last thing to choose, not the first. Once you understand that order, the entire pricing structure reverses in front of you, and the waste becomes visible. Let me walk you through what that means in dollars. A new flagship driver costs you $600 to $700. A proper fitting with the shaft that matches your numbers might cost you an additional $150 to $200 if you buy aftermarket. But the cheaper path, reshafting your existing head with the right flex, often runs under $200 total, and it frequently outperforms the brand new purchase. That is a difference of $500 for a round of golf that feels identical off the face. That $500 gap between a new flagship driver and a properly reshafted old head is exactly the kind of waste most golfers never calculate. Subscribe so you do not miss the next overlooked margin the industry is built on. And in the comments, type dead money. Everything we expose on this channel is in the Dead Money Golf ebook, 120 pages, 47 column, link below, if you have ever walked out of a store with a club that looked right and flew wrong. The system works because each fee is small enough to ignore, and the total is large enough to change your relationship with the game. You stop seeing golf as recreation. You start seeing it as a bill. The senior golfer is targeted more than any other demographic for a specific reason. Their pride is on the line. There is an unspoken pressure, as the decades pass, to prove that age has not cost them their power. A new driver promises that proof in a box. But the promise is hollow unless the club actually matches the swing it is meant to serve. I want you to think about the last time you paid for a driver. Were you fit? Did anyone measure your swing speed, or did you just pick the model that the advertisement said was longest? If you cannot remember the fitting, that is the answer. You are not playing the wrong head. You are playing the system. The quiet cruelty of it is this. The senior golfer has the most disposable income and the least patience for technical research. That combination makes them the perfect customer. They feel the urgency of limited time, and the market responds with annual releases that manufacture urgency where none exists. The clubs are not designed to serve you. They are designed to sell you. Here is the truth that ties all of this together. The wrong driver is not a mistake of choice. It is a mistake of sequence. You chose the head before you knew your numbers, and the entire pricing structure is arranged to keep you in that order. The fix is embarrassingly simple, and it costs little more than an hour of your time. Walk into the fitting studio first. Let the numbers tell you what you need. Then choose the head that suits those numbers, or keep your current head and update the shaft. In both cases, you will spend less and play better than the golfer who simply bought the newest flagship, and that is where the satisfaction lives. Not in the new box smell, but in the quiet certainty of a club that works. The silence after a swing that felt effortless because the shaft finally matched your tempo. The lack of regret when you look at the price because you know what you actually paid for. But the deeper lesson goes beyond the driver. Once you see the decoy, you cannot unsee it. You start noticing the same sequence in the wedges, the putter, the bag, the shoes. Every category is engineered the same way. Push the shiny object forward, hide the fitting data behind it, and let the golfer's hope do the rest. The driver is just the most expensive example. The next chapter is the one that changes everything. It is about the wedge, the club that senior golfers replace least often and that ages the fastest. The grooves wear down in ways the naked eye cannot see, and the performance loss is far greater than any driver upgrade. Most of you will never get fit for a wedge, and the system counts on that. But that is a conversation for another day. For now, sit with this one. The driver in your bag is not wrong because the head is bad. It is wrong because nobody asked your body what it needed before you handed over the card. That is the whole game, reduced to a single principle. The head is the last decision, not the first, and the numbers always beat the marketing. The air in the fitting bay was still. The launch monitor sat silent, waiting for the next swing. He had been in there for 11 minutes, and no one had mentioned a head yet. That was when he finally understood. The weight he had carried for years wasn't in his bag, it was in his assumptions. And when the fitter finally handed him the club he actually needed, it was the same head he already owned, wearing a different shaft that cost him less than the lunch he'd have bought at the turn. That is the moment this whole system breaks. The realization that you have been paying for confidence, not performance, and that confidence was never yours to buy in the first place. It was manufactured, priced, and placed on a shelf at eye level, waiting for someone who deserved better. That moment of clarity is the exact point where the system loses its grip. Subscribe so you are in the room when we pull back the curtain on the wedge chapter, because that one steals strokes you did not even know were gone. In the comments, write Dead Money. Everything we expose on this channel is in the Dead Money Golf ebook. 120 pages, $47. Link below. If you have ever been handed a head before a shaft, and we will know you are done paying for someone else's margin. So, the next time you stand in that pro shop, do not look at the heads. Look at the numbers on the launch monitor behind you. Ask for the fitting first. Ask for the shaft that matches your tempo. And when the sale associate hesitates, remember that their hesitation is the system's last defense. The empty silence after that first perfectly struck drive will tell you everything you need to know. Because the right club does not announce itself with a logo. It announces itself with the absence of doubt. And that is the only upgrade that ever truly mattered. He slid the card back into his wallet without checking the total twice. That was the tell, not because the number was small, but because, for the first time in years, the number finally made sense to him. The principle travels with you now. Every time you pick up a club, you have a choice about which game you are playing. The one the industry designed, where hope is the currency and the newest box is the prize. Or the quieter one, where your own numbers are the only authority that matters. The second game costs less. It feels better. And it ends with the same scorecard, minus the sting. You already have the one tool you need to beat this system, and it is not a credit card. It is the willingness to ask one question before you buy anything. What does my swing actually need, and does this club match it? The answer will not come from the shelf. It will come from a launch monitor, a fitter who listens, and the patient hour it takes to learn what your own two hands are telling you. That hour is the cheapest upgrade in golf. And it is the only one that lasts. Somewhere out there, another senior golfer is standing in that same pro shop, reaching for the same shiny head, hearing the same promises. You cannot save them from their own choice. But you can walk out with yours, knowing you no longer carry the weight they are about to pick up. The game was never rigged against your swing. It was rigged against your attention. And now that you see it, the club in your hand is finally worth what you paid for it, not because of the logo, but because of the truth you brought to the counter. That is the forgotten principle, and it never goes out of date.